Olivia Carter, a 29-year-old black woman, was finishing a long shift as a teacher at a primary school in Houston, Texas. The city was beginning to light up with the early evening lights as Olivia approached her car, parked next to a local cafe. The plaza was lively with the glow of the shops and the chatter of pedestrians, but an incident at the edge of the street caught Olivia's attention. There, by the roadside, a white man in his 40s was struggling to change a flat tire on his car. He looked frustrated and exhausted, sweaty from the effort and covered in dirt. Olivia hesitated for a moment, but her instinct to help took over. With a resigned sigh, she walked over to the man. "Hey, it looks like you're having some trouble there," Olivia said, approaching with a friendly smile. "Can I help you with that?" The man looked at her, surprised and relieved. He wiped his forehead with one of the sleeves of his shirt and smiled. That would be great, thanks. I can't even get the lug nuts off," he said, gesturing to the flat tire. "Sure, let me see what I can do," Olivia replied, kneeling down to help. As she started working, the man watched her with a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "I'm David, by the way. David Morgan," he said, extending his hand for a shake. "Nice to meet you, David." "I'm Olivia," she responded, shaking his hand with a friendly smile. The two of them worked together to remove the flat tire and replace it with a spare. What seemed like a daunting task for David became much easier with Olivia's help. As they worked, they chatted about trivial things to pass the time. "So, what brings you to this part of town?" David asked, trying to make conversation to ease the tension. "I'm just heading home after a long day at school." "I'm a teacher," Olivia explained. "And you? Any special reason for being here?" David sighed, letting out a small laugh. "Just a miscalculation on the way home. I'm a financial consultant. My job can be complicated at times, but it's a lot less complicated than changing a tire," he said, looking at the wheel with a grateful smile. After a few minutes, the tire was in place, and David was able to get his car back on the road. He looked at Olivia with a look of sincere gratitude. "Olivia, you really saved me. I don't know what I would have done without your help. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out." "Here's my card," David said, handing her a business card. "Don't worry about it, David. I'm just glad I could help," Olivia replied, accepting the card with a smile. David waved and got into his car, giving Olivia one last glance before driving off. Olivia watched the car disappear, feeling good about having helped someone in need. She got into her own car, unaware that this simple act of kindness would set off a series of events that would change their lives forever. As she drove home, Olivia thought about how unexpected life could be. It was a comforting thought, but also a reminder that the world was full of surprises, some of which could be challenging and even dangerous. With one last glance in her rearview mirror, Olivia headed home, not knowing that the night was about to bring a new and unexpected challenge. Olivia Carter woke up early that Friday morning, as was her custom. After making herself a hot cup of coffee and glancing at the news, she decided to use the morning to tackle some household chores before starting her workday. The soft morning light filled her apartment, and Olivia felt optimistic and energized. As she was getting ready to head out, something caught her eye through the kitchen window. Parked in front of her apartment was a brand-new, immaculate white SUV. The vehicle was parked exactly where David had left his car the previous night. Olivia found the vehicle unusually out of place, but initially didn't think much of it, attributing it perhaps to an occasional visitor. However, the SUV remained there all day. Olivia noticed that no one seemed to enter or exit the vehicle, and it stayed parked in the same spot. A feeling of unease began to grow inside her. The fact that the SUV wasn't moving and appeared to be always empty was starting to unsettle her. In the afternoon, Olivia decided to go to the grocery store for some shopping. As she left, she took one last look at the white SUV. The car was still there, and her sense of discomfort increased with each passing moment. When she returned home, Olivia found the SUV still in the same spot. She started to wonder if something was wrong. There was a vague feeling of being watched. The thought unsettled her, but trying to stay calm, she decided not to jump to conclusions. The next morning, as she was preparing for another workday, Olivia received an alert on her phone. An anonymous message had arrived: "Stay away from the white SUV." The text was direct and cold, making her even more anxious. She tried to rationalize the message, thinking it could be some sort of prank or joke, but the sense of danger felt real. Olivia decided to report the situation to the police. When she arrived at the station, she was greeted by a detective named Marcus Sullivan, a man in his 50s with a keen gaze and a professional demeanor. Detective Sullivan, I've been receiving threatening messages related to a white SUV that's been parked outside my home. I don't understand the reason, but I'm concerned, Olivia explained, handing over David's business card and showing the message on her phone. The detective reviewed the message and looked at Olivia with a sympathetic expression. I understand your concern, Olivia. However, at this moment, it doesn't appear to be a concrete threat. Without further evidence or a detailed description of the vehicle, there's not much we can do. I advise you to continue monitoring the situation and let us know if you notice anything else suspicious, Sullivan said, trying to reassure her. Olivia felt a mix of frustration and relief. Although there was no immediate solution, she decided to follow the detective's advice and stay vigilant. Back at her apartment, she continued to ponder the significance of the white SUV and the strange message. At night, while Olivia was at home, the thought of the white SUV troubled her. She tried to focus on her work and daily life, but the feeling that something was about to happen persisted. As she lay down to sleep, she wondered if things were as simple as they seemed, or if a series of more complex events was about to unfold. With her heart racing and her mind full of questions, Olivia closed her eyes, trying to prepare for the next day, unaware that the situation was just beginning to unravel in a way that would change her life forever. Monday morning arrived with a cloudy sky, and a light drizzle fell over Houston, creating a melancholy atmosphere that seemed to match Olivia's state of mind. She was beginning to come to terms with the feeling that something was wrong, but was still trying to keep her routine normal. However, the gloomy weather reflected the unease that lingered over her. As she was getting ready for work, Olivia checked her phone and found a new message. It was from an unknown number and contained only a short, cryptic text, "Stay alert. The white car is watching you." She read the message several times, her mind spinning with what it might mean. After a quick breakfast, Olivia decided to head to school. However, as she got into her car, the feeling of being watched didn't leave her. Every passing vehicle seemed to hold hidden significance, and the white SUV that was still parked outside her building seemed to carry an extra weight of anxiety. On her way to work, Olivia decided to stop by a small cafe for a coffee to help clear her mind. She walked into the cafe and, while placing her order, noticed a man sitting alone at a table in the corner. It was David Morgan, the man she had helped with the flat tire. David looked up at Olivia and smiled when he recognized her. "Olivia, what a coincidence to see you here. Can I buy you a coffee?" David asked, getting up and walking over. "Sure, a coffee would be great," Olivia accepted, feeling that a friendly chat might help distract her from the recent events. "Actually, I'm feeling a bit uneasy today. I received some strange messages." David led her to the table and ordered coffee for both of them. Once they were seated, he appeared genuinely concerned. "Strange messages? What are you talking about?" he asked, trying to understand the situation better. Olivia pulled out her phone and showed David the message. "I got this morning, and honestly, I have no idea what it means. The white SUV is still parked outside my building, and it's starting to make me really nervous," she explained, her face showing worry. David reviewed the message, his expression troubled. "This is really disturbing. It shouldn't be like this, but I have some suspicions about what might be going on. As I mentioned before, my company has had some issues with an unhappy client. It's possible they're trying to intimidate you for some reason." "You think they might be trying to intimidate me to get to you?" Olivia asked, her tone a mix of surprise and fear. "It's a possibility," David sighed, looking down at the table. "If that's the case, they're using you to pressure me. That's unacceptable. We need to take this seriously and find a way to protect you and resolve this situation." Olivia nodded. "And what now? What can we do?" David thought for a moment before responding. "I'll make some calls and try to find out more about this situation. We should look into hiring a private detective, someone who can investigate this more thoroughly. In the meantime, you should stay vigilant. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call the police or me." He looked at Olivia with a determined gaze. "Thank you, David. I really appreciate your help," Olivia said. relieved to have someone to rely on. David smiled at her, trying to offer some comfort. Don't worry, Olivia. We'll get this sorted out. After the coffee, David and Olivia said their goodbyes, and she went back home with a mix of hope and apprehension. The worry was far from disappearing, but the decision to seek help gave Olivia a sense of action. She knew that the next step was crucial and hoped that with David's help and the professional's assistance, they could finally understand what was really happening and ensure her safety. The sun set over Houston, and the city was cloaked in a shadow of uncertainty. Olivia Carter couldn't sleep well that night. The cryptic messages and the white SUV parked outside her apartment constantly troubled her. Determined not to let fear paralyze her, Olivia decided to face the situation with a new perspective. The next morning, Olivia headed to work, but her mind was far from the classroom. She couldn't stop thinking about the SUV and the mysterious message. During her lunch break, she decided to follow a strategy she'd considered the night before. Check the parking history for her street to gather more information. Back at her apartment, Olivia went to the building management office. She found the receptionist, an elderly woman named Mrs. Jenkins, busy with paperwork. Hello, Mrs. Jenkins. I'm looking for information about a white SUV that's been parked in front of my building. Could you help me find out if anyone knows anything about it? Olivia asked, with an urgent tone. Mrs. Jenkins looked at Olivia with curiosity. Oh, a white SUV, you say? Let me check, Mrs. Jenkins said as she typed some information into her computer. It seems we don't have specific records of visitors, but I can tell you that some of the residents have mentioned seeing a car like that driving around the area. Olivia frowned. Do you know who those people are, or if there's any pattern to when the car appears? Mrs. Jenkins shook her head. Sorry, I don't have that information right now, but if you like, I can ask the residents and see if anyone has any relevant information. That would be great, thank you, Olivia said, feeling a slight sense of hope as she left the office. Later, Olivia received a message from David, who had contacted a private investigator named Claire Ross. Claire was an experienced investigator known for her skill in solving complex cases. David suggested Olivia meet with Claire to discuss the situation. Olivia agreed immediately and scheduled a meeting for the afternoon. When Olivia arrived at Claire's office, the detective was buried under a pile of papers and documents. Claire was a middle-aged woman with a sharp gaze and an assertive demeanor. Olivia Carter? I'm Claire Ross, the detective said, extending her hand, which Olivia shook firmly. David informed me about the situation. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Olivia settled into the chair in front of Claire's desk and began to explain what she knew so far. I helped a man named David with a flat tire. The next day, a white SUV appeared in front of my building, and since then, I've been receiving threatening messages, Olivia explained, showing the message to Claire. Claire examined the phone with interest. These messages are indeed disturbing. Let's start by investigating the car. Do you have any additional details about the vehicle or the messages? Olivia shook her head. Not much beyond what I've already mentioned. The car always seems to be empty, and I haven't been able to find any concrete information about who might be driving it. The only thing I can add is that when the car appears, it stays parked for hours. Claire jotted down some information and looked at Olivia with a determined expression. Understood. I'll start the investigation right away. I'll need you to provide me with any information you might have about anyone who could be connected to the situation. I'll also keep an eye on the SUV and check the parking records for the area. If you receive any more messages, let me know immediately. Olivia felt a sense of relief at Claire's confidence. Thank you, Detective Ross. I really hope we can resolve this soon. Claire smiled, trying to offer some comfort. We'll do our best, Olivia. Just stay alert, and if you sense anything unusual, get in touch. We won't let this slide. As Olivia left Claire's office, she felt a mix of anxiety and hope. The investigation was just beginning, but with Claire and David's help, she felt she might finally get some answers. The mystery of the white SUV was still unresolved, but now, at least, she had a plan of action and a team to tackle the enigma. With one last look at the white SUV parked outside her building, Olivia prepared for what was to come, determined to uncover the truth and protect her own safety. Days passed with Olivia's tension growing as the investigation moved slowly. The white SUV continued to park regularly in front of her building, and the threatening messages didn't stop. Olivia's discomfort was palpable, but she tried to maintain normalcy in her daily routine. One clear morning, Olivia received a message from David with an update on the situation. David had managed to contact Michael Johnson, a disgruntled former client who, according to David, might be involved. Michael was an investor who had had issues with David's business and might have reasons for retaliation. David asked Olivia to meet with Michael to discuss the situation. When Olivia arrived at the cafe where David had set up the meeting, she found him already seated at a table. He looked clearly concerned, and his expression was serious. "Hi, Olivia. I hope you're doing okay," David said, standing up to greet her. "Hi, David. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm here. And did you bring Michael?" Olivia asked, trying to stay calm. David nodded and indicated a man approaching the table. Michael Johnson, a white man in his mid-40s, was tall and had a serious demeanor. He approached and extended his hand to Olivia. "Hello, Olivia. I'm Michael Johnson," he said, with a firm handshake. "David told me about the situation, and I'd like to help in any way I can." "Nice to meet you, Michael. I appreciate you meeting with us," Olivia said, trying to convey confidence. The three sat down and began discussing the situation. David and Michael provided Olivia with more details about Michael's issues with the company and how things had become tense. "Olivia, what you need to know is that after a failed investment, my relationship with David's company deteriorated. I'm not directly involved with the threat you're facing, but I've heard that some disgruntled people might be trying to intimidate me as well," Michael explained. Olivia frowned. "So, you think these people might be trying to use the situation to pressure you through me?" Michael nodded. "It's possible. The organization I dealt with has a reputation for using intimidating tactics. It's a possibility that they're trying to pressure me through you, especially since the SUV and the messages align with my problems." David added, "Michael and I agree that we need to take this seriously and seek help from someone who can really handle these threats. That's why I contacted Detective Claire Ross. She's already investigating the situation, but Michael's help could be crucial in understanding the context better." Michael looked at Olivia with a sympathetic expression. "Olivia, I'm sorry for all of this. If there's anything I can do to help clarify the situation, or if you need more information about the company and the people involved, please let me know. I want to make sure you're safe and that we can resolve this as quickly as possible." "Thank you, Michael. Any additional information could be helpful. I'm worried and hope we can find a solution," Olivia said, relieved to have everyone's support. The meeting ended with a shared sense of determination. Michael and David promised to work with Claire to provide any additional information that might help with the investigation. Olivia left the cafe with a renewed perspective, feeling a bit more secure knowing she had a plan and a team to support her. As she walked back home, Olivia reflected on the recent discussions and the new information she had received. The mystery of the white SUV was still far from resolved, but working with Michael and Claire's investigation offered a glimmer of hope. Olivia was ready to face the next chapter of this journey, determined to unravel the mystery and protect herself from any threats that might arise. The weather in Houston was particularly hot that day, with the intense heat mingling with a sense of tension that hung over Olivia Carter. Since the meeting with Michael and David, Olivia felt slightly more hopeful, but the uncertainty about the white SUV and the threatening messages persisted. Detective Claire Ross had promised an update, and Olivia was anxious to hear any new information. The following afternoon, Olivia received a call from Claire. The detective asked to meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. Olivia quickly agreed and headed to the meeting spot. When Olivia arrived at the cafe, Claire was waiting at a discreet table in the corner. The detective looked tired, but the determined look in her eyes suggested she had made progress. Olivia approached and took a seat. "Olivia, thank you for coming," Claire began, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "I have some updates on the investigation." Olivia leaned forward, her anxiety evident. "What did you find out?" Olivia asked, her voice a mix of hope and nervousness. Claire started to explain. "I did a detailed investigation on the white SUV and discovered it belongs to a private security company operating in Houston. The owner of the company, Daniel Brooks, has a problematic legal history involving threats and intimidation tactics," Claire said. Olivia furrowed her brow. Daniel Brooks? I've never heard of him. What does he have to do with my situation? Claire continued. Michael and David confirmed that Brooks was a previous client of David's, and there were some disputes over payments and services. It seems that after a financial disagreement, Brooks became quite aggressive. The white SUV might be linked to an attempt to pressure David to resolve these issues in an unconventional way. Olivia felt a weight on her shoulders. So, you're saying Brooks might be trying to intimidate me to force David to pay a debt or resolve the situation in a way that favors him? Claire nodded. Exactly. And based on the information we've gathered, Brooks may have hired some agents to follow and intimidate you as a form of indirect pressure. Olivia thought for a moment, trying to process the information. So what do we do now? How can we deal with this? Claire took a sip of her coffee before answering. I'll continue to investigate Brooks and his security company. In the meantime, I suggest you take additional precautions. It might be helpful to have someone accompany you, especially during critical moments. I'll also try to get a protective order to ensure you're safer. Olivia nodded, relieved by the proactive measures. Thank you, Claire. What about Michael? He seems to have some useful knowledge. Claire smiled slightly. Michael is helping to keep in touch and provide additional information. I believe he can be a valuable resource in understanding the situation more thoroughly and reinforcing protection. The conversation ended with Claire assuring Olivia that they were doing everything possible to resolve the situation. Olivia felt a wave of relief knowing there was a plan in place, but anxiety still lingered. She knew the situation was far from resolved, but now she had a clearer direction. As Olivia left the cafe, she ran into David, who had arrived to meet with her. He greeted her with a concerned look. How was the meeting with the detective? David asked, looking for signs of relief or further worries. We found out that the SUV is linked to a security company and Daniel Brooks, who has a problematic history, Olivia explained. Claire is working to ensure our safety and continue the investigation. David nodded, looking relieved that there was a plan in motion. That's a good development. Stay in touch with Claire and take all necessary precautions. We're all in this together. Olivia thanked him, and they said their goodbyes. With a new understanding of the situation and a plan in place, Olivia felt more prepared to face what was to come. The mystery was unfolding, and she was determined to protect herself and resolve the situation. The sweltering heat of Houston was intensified by a growing sense of tension as Olivia Carter prepared for a decisive meeting. Detective Claire Ross had managed to schedule a meeting with Daniel Brooks, the owner of the security company, and Olivia was determined to confront the man behind the threats that had been tormenting her. The meeting was set for a conference room in an upscale private security office. The environment was cold and austere, with dark furniture and minimalist decor. Olivia and Claire arrived a bit early, and Claire used the time to ensure that everything was prepared for the meeting. Olivia, remember to stay calm and stay focused. Brooks is known for being a shrewd individual and might try to manipulate the situation to his advantage, Claire advised as she organized some documents. I understand. I'll try not to let him intimidate me, Olivia replied, trying to control her anxiety. At 10 o'clock, Daniel Brooks entered the room. He was a tall, imposing man with a calculating gaze that left no doubt about his confidence. Dressed in a dark suit, he wore a mix of disdain and an enigmatic smile. He greeted Olivia and Claire with a nod and took a seat at the table. Mr. Brooks, thank you for meeting with us, Claire said, adjusting her gaze to Brooks. I'm Claire Ross, and this is Olivia Carter. We're here to discuss some concerns related to your company and the behavior of some of your employees. Brooks looked at Olivia with a scrutinizing gaze, but quickly shifted his attention back to Claire. Of course, Detective Ross. I'm more than willing to clear up any misunderstandings. How can I assist? His voice was cold and calculated. Claire began to explain the situation. Recently, Olivia has been facing threats and intense surveillance from a white SUV linked to your company. We want to understand the origin of this situation and ensure Olivia's safety. Brooks leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Olivia. I see. Well, my company is known for providing security, and occasionally some actions may be misinterpreted. However, I assure you that we have strict protocols and do not tolerate intimidation. Olivia took a deep breath before speaking. Mr. Brooks, my concern is that my safety and peace of mind have been severely compromised. I need to understand why your company is involved and what we can do to resolve this. Brooks raised an eyebrow. I understand your concerns, Olivia. However, I must emphasize that if there is any problem, it should not be directly related to me or the company. If there has been any misunderstanding, I'm willing to cooperate. Claire intervened. Mr. Brooks, we have concrete information linking the SUV to your company. The private investigator who looked into the case identified your vehicle and your company. We need to clarify the involvement thoroughly. Brooks seemed to contemplate the information, his expression turning more serious. All right, let's sort this out. I'll need more details about the dates and times of the incidents to investigate thoroughly. If it's a procedural error on our part, we'll correct it immediately. Claire made a note. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Brooks. We hope the situation can be resolved as soon as possible. Brooks stood up, signaling that the meeting was coming to an end. I'm committed to investigating this thoroughly and ensuring that all procedures are reviewed. If you have any more details, please get in touch, he said, his tone seeming more conciliatory. As Olivia and Claire prepared to leave, Claire whispered to Olivia, "Don't get too comfortable. Brooks's behavior might be a facade for something more sinister. Stay vigilant." Olivia nodded, feeling a mix of relief and unease. Although Brooks had shown a willingness to cooperate, the feeling that something was still being hidden lingered. As they left the security office, Claire and Olivia discussed the next steps in the investigation. Olivia was anxious to see if the meeting with Brooks would lead to any concrete changes, but she knew there was still much to resolve. With the investigation ongoing and the support of Michael and David, Olivia felt a bit more hopeful. However, the threat was still present, and the truth about Brooks's involvement and his company still needed to be fully revealed. After the meeting with Daniel Brooks, Olivia Carter and Detective Claire Ross returned to Claire's office to discuss the next steps. The atmosphere was charged with both tension and determination. The meeting with Brooks had uncovered some information, but the feeling that there was something deeper and darker still lingered. Claire opened her laptop and began reviewing the notes and evidence collected so far. Olivia, now that Brooks has committed to investigating, we need to closely monitor any developments. We can't afford to let our guard down, Claire said as she went through the documents. Also, while investigating Brooks, I found a detail that might be relevant. One of the security company's employees who worked directly with Brooks might have additional information. Olivia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. An employee? Who is he? Claire consulted her papers and read aloud. His name is Jack Turner. He works as an operations coordinator at the security company and seems to have a history of involvement in similar cases. I'll try to reach out to him for more information. The detective paused and looked at Olivia. I'll need your help to approach him. It's important that we don't mention the investigation directly, but try to find out if there's any link to what you're going through. Olivia nodded. Got it. I'll do whatever it takes. When and where should we meet him? Claire adjusted her chair and made a quick call to Jack Turner. After a brief conversation, she managed to schedule a meeting with Jack for the next day at a quiet cafe on the west side of Houston. The following day, Olivia and Claire arrived at the cafe and found Jack Turner seated at a table near the window. Jack was a middle-aged man with a weary look and a defensive posture. He wore casual attire and seemed to have been waiting for a while. Mr. Turner? Claire introduced herself as Olivia settled into the seat next to her. I'm Detective Claire Ross, and this is Olivia Carter. Thank you for meeting with us. Jack looked up and greeted them with a nod. Sure, what can I do for you? His voice was a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Claire started with a casual conversation, trying to put Jack at ease. We wanted to understand more about the work at your company and discuss some issues related to a former client. We know you have experience with complex cases and might be able to help clarify some information. Jack looked at Olivia and then back at Claire, his gaze intrigued. I understand. My job involves managing various operations and occasionally, we deal with problematic clients. If there's something specific you need to know, I'll try to help. Olivia decided to speak up. Actually, I'm dealing with a situation where a white SUV linked to your company has been causing me significant concern. I'm trying to understand if there's any reason why my safety might be compromised. Jack seemed surprised and hesitated for a moment before responding. That's concerning. Unfortunately, I'm not fully aware of all the company's operations, but what I can say is that, in some situations, there are specific orders from higher up that may involve aggressive methods. Claire noticed Jack's cautious tone and asked a pointed question. Jack, can you give us any idea of who might have issued the orders for this surveillance? Any detail, no matter how small, could be helpful. Jack hesitated, looking around to make sure no one was listening. Look, I can speak in general terms. When someone has a serious issue with the company or a client, the orders to intensify surveillance or pressure can come directly from the top. Daniel Brooks is at the top of that hierarchy, and there might be someone else involved with him. Claire took quick notes and then asked one last question. Is there any employee you think might be more directly involved, or who might have more information? Jack thought for a moment before answering. There was a supervisor named Eric Lawson who was known for handling delicate operations. I don't know if he's still with the company, but he might have had access to information about the specific case you're investigating. Olivia and Claire thanked Jack for the information and said their goodbyes. Claire made a mental note to investigate Eric Lawson further to see if he could provide more relevant information. As they left the cafe, Claire commented, Jack gave us some important leads. Let's follow up on Eric Lawson and see what we can find out about him. Also, stay alert for any new activity around your home. The situation might still have more layers than we realize. Olivia agreed, feeling that each new piece of information was helping to piece together the puzzle. Although the threat was still present, she was more determined than ever to uncover the truth and ensure her safety. The weather in Houston was slightly cooler as Olivia Carter and Detective Claire Ross prepared for the next step in their investigation. After the meeting with Jack Turner, Claire had started looking into Eric Lawson, the former supervisor mentioned by Jack. Lawson could be a key piece in understanding the situation involving the white SUV and the threats Olivia was facing. Claire had managed to locate Lawson's address, which was in a suburban area outside downtown Houston. With the address in hand, Olivia and Claire decided to visit Lawson at his home. It was a cloudy day, and the atmosphere seemed to mirror the uncertainty that hung over them. When they arrived at Lawson's house, they found a modest but well-kept property, nothing extravagant. Claire and Olivia approached the front door and rang the bell. After a few moments, a middle-aged man with a slightly disheveled appearance answered. Eric Lawson had a tired look and a cautious expression. Hello, Eric Lawson? Claire asked, showing her identification. I'm Detective Claire Ross, and this is Olivia Carter. Can we talk to you about some matters related to your previous work? Lawson hesitated for a moment before opening the door a little wider. Sure. Come on in, please. He seemed reluctant but invited them inside. The house was tidy but clearly in a controlled state of disarray. Lawson led Olivia and Claire to a modest living room and offered them coffee, which they accepted politely. So, what do you want to discuss? Lawson asked as he sat on the couch, watching them with a keen eye. Claire began to explain. Recently, Olivia has been facing threats and intensive surveillance from a white SUV associated with the security company where you used to work. We've been informed that you might have information about these operations and about who might have given the orders for this. Lawson frowned and looked at Olivia with a surprised expression. I didn't know this was happening. When I worked at the company, I dealt with sensitive operations, but I wasn't aware of anything involving personal threats, Lawson said, trying to sound sincere. Olivia decided to be direct. Eric, we need to understand if you have any information on how orders are given, or if there's someone specific who might have directed this surveillance against me. Lawson sighed and looked at Claire. The truth is, the most sensitive operations were managed directly by Daniel Brooks. I was responsible for coordinating activities, but the orders came from above. If there was any specific surveillance or pressure, it would have been a decision made by Brooks or someone directly under his command. Claire took quick notes and asked, And what about the other employees? Is there anyone in particular who you think might have more information or played a more active role in these operations? Lawson hesitated before responding. There was a supervisor named Martin Hale, who handled the more specific orders. He was known for being quite strict and detailed in his operations. If there's someone who might have more information, it would be him. Claire and Olivia exchanged a look of understanding. It was clear that Hale might be the next focus of their investigation. Thank you for the information, Eric. This gives us a clearer direction to follow. If you remember anything else or have any concerns, please get in touch, Claire said as Olivia nodded in agreement. Lawson nodded and escorted Olivia and Claire to the door. I hope you managed to resolve this. I sincerely didn't want to be involved in anything that could cause problems for someone, Lawson said with a tone of remorse. After leaving Lawson's house, Claire and Olivia discussed the new information as they headed to the car. Martin Hale seems to be the next crucial step. Let's try to locate him and see what he might know about the operations and the orders given, Claire said with a tone of determination. Olivia agreed. I'm starting to feel like we're getting closer to uncovering the truth, but we still need to ensure our safety and be prepared for anything that might come up. Claire smiled slightly. Let's keep moving forward. Every piece of information we get is a step closer to solving the case. Stay alert and keep noting anything that happens. With the new lead on Martin Hale, Olivia and Claire were more determined than ever to advance the investigation and unravel the mystery surrounding the white SUV and the threats against Olivia. The next step would be to locate Hale and find out if he could provide the final answers they were seeking. Twilight had begun to settle over Houston, and the day's heat was giving way to a cooler breeze. Olivia Carter and Detective Claire Ross were heading to a small town on the outskirts of Houston, where Martin Hale, the former security company supervisor, lived. Based on Eric Lawson's information, Hale might have crucial insights into the operations and orders that led to the surveillance and threats Olivia was facing. The address provided by Lawson led them to a modest home in a quiet residential area. Upon arrival, Claire and Olivia noted that while the house was somewhat worn, it was still well maintained. The detective had scheduled a meeting with Hale for that day, and both were hopeful that this meeting might reveal valuable information. Claire and Olivia rang the doorbell, and after a few moments, Martin Hale, a man in his 50s with a rugged, tired appearance, answered the door. He looked at the two women with a mixture of surprise and caution. Good afternoon, Mr. Hale. I'm Detective Claire Ross, and this is Olivia Carter. Could we talk to you about some matters related to your previous work at the security company? Claire asked, maintaining a professional and friendly tone. Hale hesitated for a moment before opening the door a bit wider. Come in, please. He led them into a simple living room and offered coffee, which Olivia and Claire politely declined. After they were seated, Claire began to speak. We're currently investigating a series of threats and intensive surveillance involving a white SUV associated with your former security company. Eric Lawson, a former colleague of yours, suggested that you might have information on how orders were managed and whether there was any involvement in specific surveillance operations. Hale frowned and took a deep breath, clearly unsettled by the mention of his former job. Look, I didn't know things had escalated like this. When I worked there, I was responsible for supervising operations and ensuring everything was carried out according to the orders received, Hale explained, his tone tinged with resignation. Olivia, noticing the tension in Hale's expression, decided to speak directly. Mr. Hale, we need to understand who was giving the orders for these operations, and if you know anything specific about the white SUV and the surveillance that's affecting me directly. Hale looked at Claire and then at Olivia, his expression showing a mix of concern and hesitation. The orders came directly from Daniel Brooks. He was responsible for approving all operations, and if there was anything out of the ordinary, he was behind it. I only coordinated activities according to the guidelines he set. Claire took notes and asked, were there any other employees or supervisors who worked directly with Brooks and might have additional information about these orders? Hale seemed to think over his response before speaking. Yes, there was a person named Laura Mitchell, who was Brooks's executive assistant. She had access to all communications and reports and might know more about any specific orders that were given. Laura was very meticulous with details and could have important information. Olivia and Claire exchanged a knowing glance. Laura Mitchell seemed to be a central figure in solving the puzzle. Thank you very much for your help, Mr. Hale. If you remember anything else or have more information, please don't hesitate to reach out, Claire said as Olivia nodded in agreement. Hale stood and escorted them to the door. I really hope you can sort this out. I never imagined something like this could spiral out of control, Hale said, his tone reflecting remorse. After saying their goodbyes, Olivia and Claire returned to the car. Claire began reviewing her notes while Olivia reflected on the latest information. Laura Mitchell seems to be the next key to understanding what's going on. Let's try to locate her and see if she can clarify the remaining details, Claire said with a tone of determination. Olivia agreed. With all this new information, I'm starting to feel like we're getting closer to the truth. But we still need to ensure we stay safe and be ready for any new twists. Claire smiled slightly. Yes, we're making progress. Stay alert and keep me informed about any updates. We're getting closer to solving the case every day. With the new lead on Laura Mitchell, Olivia and Claire were more focused than ever on unraveling the mystery of the white SUV and the threats. The next step would be to locate Laura and get the final answers needed to ensure Olivia's safety and resolve the case. The weather in Houston was starting to cool down with the approach of fall, but Olivia Carter and Detective Claire Ross were full throttle with their investigation. With the new lead on Laura Mitchell, the executive assistant who might have crucial information about the security company's operations and orders, the two women were determined to track her down. Laura Mitchell lived in a quiet residential neighborhood, in an elegant home that reflected a comfortable lifestyle. Claire and Olivia headed to Laura's house on a sunny afternoon. The anticipation was high, but there was also a sense of caution. Based on previous information, Laura might hold vital details for understanding the situation better. When they arrived at Laura's home, they rang the doorbell. After a few moments, a woman in her 40s, with a sophisticated appearance and a confident demeanor, answered the door. Laura Mitchell looked at the two visitors with a mix of curiosity and caution. Hello, I'm Detective Claire Ross, and this is Olivia Carter. Can we speak with you about some matters related to your previous work at the security company? Claire introduced herself in a professional yet friendly tone. Laura hesitated for a moment, examining the two women with a piercing look before responding. Come in, please. She stepped aside to let Claire and Olivia enter the house. Laura's living room was sophisticated, with modern, cozy decor. Laura led them to a coffee table and offered drinks, which Claire and Olivia politely declined. After they were seated, Claire began to speak. Laura, we're currently investigating a series of threats and surveillance involving a white SUV associated with your former security company. Eric Lawson, a former supervisor, mentioned that you had access to all communications and orders related to the operations. Laura sat down and crossed her arms, her expression now more serious. I understand. The company I worked for was involved in various complex and sensitive operations. If there were any specific orders related to your investigation, I might have relevant information. However, I need to know more details about what you're looking for. Olivia, paying close attention to every word, decided to intervene. Laura, we're trying to find out who was behind the surveillance and threats. It's possible that the orders for these actions came from someone in a commanding position, and you might have access to that information. Laura looked at Olivia and then at Claire, clearly weighing her response. When I worked there, I had access to high-level reports and communications. If something was done without my knowledge, it's hard to say. But I was well acquainted with the details of the orders and operations that came directly from Brooks. Claire made a quick note and asked a targeted question. Can you tell us if there was any order or communication that was particularly unusual or might indicate a specific surveillance operation? Any documentation or event that stood out? Laura thought for a moment before responding. There was a confidential file that contained details about special operations and problematic clients. That file was kept secure and accessed only by a small group of people, including Brooks and me. There might be information in there that explains the surveillance and threats. Olivia and Claire exchanged a knowing glance. The confidential file could be the key to understanding the entire situation. Where can we find that file? Claire asked, her tone urgent. Laura hesitated, her look becoming more concerned. The file is stored in a secure vault at the former company headquarters. If you need to access it, you'll have to get legal authorization since it contains sensitive information. Olivia frowned. Can you help us obtain that authorization? Laura looked at Olivia and Claire, and after a moment of reflection, replied, I'll see what I can do to help, but it will be a complicated process. I need to consult with a lawyer to make sure everything is done legally. However, I can provide a list of contacts at the company who might facilitate access to the file. Claire took another note and thanked Laura. We really appreciate your assistance, Laura. Any additional help you can provide will be greatly appreciated. Laura stood up and escorted Olivia and Claire to the door. I hope you can resolve this. The situation is clearly more complex than I imagined, Laura said, with a tone of regret. After saying their goodbyes, Claire and Olivia returned to the car, reflecting on the meeting. With Laura's information, we're closer to understanding what's really going on. We need to act quickly to obtain legal authorization and access the file, Claire said with a resolute tone. Olivia agreed. Yes, we're making progress. Now it's a matter of ensuring everything is done correctly and safely. With every step, I feel like we're getting closer to solving the mystery and ensuring my safety. Claire smiled slightly. Exactly. Let's keep following the leads and making sure everything is done the right way. We're almost there. With the new direction to obtain the confidential file and Laura's cooperation, Olivia and Claire were more focused than ever on solving the case and uncovering the truth behind the threats and surveillance. The sun had set, and Houston was enveloped in the darkness of night. Olivia Carter and Detective Claire Ross were in a law office, waiting for the legal authorization to access the confidential file mentioned by Laura Mitchell. The evening was filled with anticipation, and the effort to secure the authorization had been a race against time. Laura Mitchell had been cooperative, providing a list of contacts and doing her best to facilitate access to the file. After some legal negotiations, Claire had finally secured the necessary authorization. Now, the challenge was to access the secure vault at the former headquarters of the security company. Claire and Olivia headed to the old security company building, now closed and under renovation. The atmosphere around the building was quiet and a bit eerie, reflecting the tension surrounding the investigation. Upon arriving at the building, Claire used the legal authorization to unlock the entrance. Accompanied by a security guard still working on site, they were guided to the vault where the file was stored. The guard, with a curious look, watched as Claire and Olivia opened the vault. The vault was small but well secured, featuring a combination lock and a robust locking system. After entering the combination, the vault slowly opened, revealing a large and meticulously organized file. Claire examined the file closely while Olivia watched anxiously. Here's the confidential file. Let's see what it contains, Claire said, starting to flip through the pages. As Claire and Olivia reviewed the documents, they found a series of detailed reports about surveillance operations, lists of problematic clients, and internal communications. Among the pages, a specific report caught Claire's attention. It detailed a surveillance operation that included a description of the white SUV. Claire read aloud, sharing the information with Olivia. Operation 378, Special Surveillance. Here's a list of involved vehicles, including the white SUV. The reports mention instructions to closely monitor an individual identified as Olivia Carter. Olivia frowned, worried. So, the surveillance was a direct order. But why me? What exactly was going on? Claire continued reading the report. There's a section here that mentions a high-risk client. It seems there was a risk assessment made for different clients, and Olivia Carter's name appeared as a potential threat or target, but the specific reason isn't clear. Claire moved to the next part of the file, where she found a series of communications and notes about Daniel Brooks's orders. One communication, in particular, stood out. This communication is a direct order from Brooks to intensify surveillance on cases classified as highly sensitive, Claire explained. It looks like you were included in this category, but we still don't have a clear reason. Olivia was deeply unsettled, but also relieved to finally be getting some answers. So, it seems this all started with an internal decision at the company, but we still need to understand the exact reason, Olivia said, reflecting on the situation. Claire looked at Olivia with a resolute tone. We need to talk to Brooks to get more clarity on this. Also, this information is valuable for understanding the extent of the surveillance and how to address the threats properly. Before Claire and Olivia could proceed, the building's security guard approached. Sorry, but it's best if you leave now. The building is closing soon, he said with an impassive look. Claire and Olivia quickly closed the vault and thanked the security guard before leaving the building. Once outside, Claire spoke to Olivia. Now that we have this information, we need to prepare for a meeting with Daniel Brooks. The evidence shows that the decision came directly from him, and he might have more details about why you were targeted. Olivia nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. I agree. Now that we have a clearer direction, it's time to confront Brooks and get all the answers we need to finally resolve this. Claire gave a slight smile, patting Olivia on the shoulder. Exactly. Let's continue moving forward with confidence. We're getting closer to understanding the truth and ensuring your safety. With the file's information in hand and a new meeting with Daniel Brooks on the horizon, Olivia and Claire were ready to face the next challenge in their quest for the truth. The investigation was nearing its conclusion, and they were determined to uncover all the details needed to solve the mystery and protect Olivia.